Hello, everyone.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Welcome to the Child Redwoods Live, where two former public school teachers who chose to homeschool their own children share their views on education, parenting, Montessori, life, and love. I'm Aubrey.
I'm David. So glad to have you here. We're here to help you decide what kind of education you want to give your own child, whether you choose to homeschool full time or not. We believe education is a journey you take with your children, and the opportunities to learn start over every day. And today, for this episode, we are going to be talking about a new favorite in the house, which is Encanto. What else can be said about Encanto? We'll find out. Maybe nothing new, but time will tell. And then, but before then, a couple updates.
Yeah. So, in the Homeschool of Redwoods primary course, we have been talking about practical life, which is such a fun topic. So I talked a lot about that this morning. If you are here joining from there, hi, I'm so glad that you could join us again. These are skills that are going to be useful for a child's entire life. And we actually have some personal stories to share about what practical life looks like as children get older, too.
That's right.
And then in our elementary course, we've been talking about grammar and we are moving into math. So that's going to be really, really fun. I love the Montessori math materials.
It's amazing stuff.
It is. It is. And I also love to take a do-it-yourself approach with those materials because they're so rewarding when you actually make them yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think it's amazing. So, so that is coming up. So unfortunately, you can't register for the elementary course. We will be opening up registration May 31st. Yeah. Okay, good.
You can register for the fall primary if you're interested in joining us for the next start of primary. That begins officially in August with the live, but you can go ahead and enroll today. And if you do, we'll get you into the community early and you can start using all that content. The other thing, we want to remind you that we do have we are very proud of it, fun program called Constellation, which is a monthly curriculum club, essentially. Every month you get a new set of curriculum. This coming month in April is going to be Mud. If you join, you get a whole year's worth plus everything in the archive, which currently goes back to January 2021. So it's a ton of thematic content and coaching videos and all kinds of fun stuff. Plus you get access to the community where we've got many hundreds of folks from all over the world. So can't wait to have you join us. If you'd like to know more, just go head over to our website and check it out. We've got some samples and everything.
Yeah, finally, if you happen to miss this live, I assume you're watching the replay if you're listening, or maybe the podcast. But just to let you know, if you're watching live and you have to leave, it's okay. We will repost the replay on YouTube, or you can catch it on the Child of the Redwoods podcast. So we are kind of alternating this year. I am recording a new episode every other week. And what we're doing is on the alternate weeks, we'll post the replays of these lives. And then on the weeks when I do an episode, we are featuring Montessori parents just like you who are using Montessori in a real life way in their homes. And they kind of talk about their rhythm and routine, kind of what it actually looks like in real life, the challenges that they have. So it's a really great way to learn more about Montessori if you're just learning about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's jump into it. Always for each episode, we always want to talk a little bit about what's going on here in our home, so you can get some examples of real life homeschooling adventures I'm not going to say pros. I guess we're pros. I don't know.
I don't believe in experts, really.
Yeah, two people who are trying their best. Exactly, two learners in life. This time we want to talk about spring cleaning. It is spring here, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. We just had the equinox a couple of days back. It's a great time to sort of reassess. It's especially potent this year for us, we found, because we are really, in a lot of ways, trying to dig out of some of the pandemic funk. We had all kinds of things that we had collected during that basically 2-year period. We're here in the Bay Area in California, so very strict lockdown procedures for a couple years.
Yeah, our Goodwill actually closed.
Exactly.
Yeah, and a lot of the Goodwills around us did. And I was kind of in a habit of gathering things up every now and then and taking them off to the donation center. And
But
all of that stopped
it
for
all
like 2
stopped.
years.
That's right. So it sort of gathered in the garage or in piles, and then eventually just stopped gathering. It just sort of sat in place. But we, we had a long conversation with each other to kind of talk about how we wanted to prioritize the next several months of our life together. And spring cleaning was on that list, and it was very cathartic to go through that process of cleaning. And it was also incredibly healing for the whole family, because it wasn't just, Aubrey and I going through and throwing out stuff. We really involved the whole family. All the boys, both boys joined us in this. They were specifically responsible for their rooms, but common areas as well, and talking about like the value of it and why it was important. Our kids are a little older, 14 and 11, but so kind of some of the lessons they're learning from that about responsibility and so forth are a little different. But even if you got really little guys, it's great to involve them in this process of organizing and cleaning. This is a perfect practical life activity, and it really is rejuvenating, which actually I think thematically fits with Encanto. We're going to talk a little bit about later, but it's such a healing process. It's about resetting routines, thinking about your life, planning ahead, and it really gives you a sense of control. And for both adults and children, that sense of control is vital. And so we can take moments like a moment to spring clean or to set new and renewed routines. It can be very, very rejuvenating.
It can. So it actually calls to mind recently I had a conversation with our youngest about taking a bath, which, I don't know, I know there's some ages when they love taking baths, and then there's
That's
some
right.
ages where they don't love taking baths. And so he's at an age where he really does not. He is really resistant to wanting to get in and get clean. And he was kind of feeling kind of in a grumpy mood. And I said to him, you know what? If you take a bath, you're going to feel better. It's going to feel so good. And he said, how would you know that? That's not true. No one's ever said that. And I said, taking a bath has mental effects as well. It's not just about getting your body clean. It's about helping you emotionally. And he said, well, how is that supposed to help me emotionally? And I said, this bad mood you're in, I bet that when you're in the middle of your bath, you're just going to be like, oh, this feels good. And I feel good. And he said, I will not. But then, of course, as soon as he got in the bath, like I could hear him in there singing to himself and just enjoying. And then he came out, he was happy. So anytime we cleanse, I think we have the opportunity to find some more of that joyfulness inside it.
Absolutely. Aubrey, you said something during that process that really resonated, and that's, it can be hard to let things go, especially if we associate them with something really emotional. As I think many of you, or some of you might know, we had my father passed away last year from cancer. It was a very difficult process for the family during COVID, especially, and so having that kind of rooted memory added to sort of our stuckness, I think, in a lot of ways. And when we are getting rid of items that we may not actually know that we're associating with those bad memories. It could be a bag of rice that we got at the store and stored away, waiting for the rainy day when there was no more rice in the grocery stores. As there were moments during the early pandemic where that seemed very possible.
Yeah.
And so you find that and you look at it, and getting rid of it, it brings back a lot of memories. It's not just about that bag of rice. It can be about the whole of your life experiences and even things that seem completely unrelated. But as you were pointing out, like when we say to that object, no longer like you're no longer going to tie me to this. I'm actually releasing you to go on to something else. You're going to make somebody else happy. I'm going to donate you. Or in the case of the rice, I'm going to either cook you or I'm going to compost you, and you can become fertilizer for the soil. They take the composting from here in the Bay and they use it in the farms and things around the area. So when we compost, we're contributing to our local community. And so turning those things over, they can be very psychologically healthy and difficult. We can have that same kind of resistance that our youngest was having about getting in the bath. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then you get in, you feel good, and you forget why you fought so much. So encouraging you to, if you have been putting some of those things off, do it and get the kids involved. Do it as a family. Lean into it. It's more than just cleaning up the dust and detritus. It's about sort of clearing your mind and your emotional, psychic space, your spiritual space as well.
Yeah. And if you have things to share, like, I would love to know, how does cleaning make you feel? Just chat that in the comments. We would love to read that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or if it's a spring cleaning time for you, raise your hand and tell us. I love it that we can use our communities to help motivate ourselves to collectively get into that state.
Well, before you move on, did you want to talk about the chair?
Oh, I'm so excited about Encanto.
I'm sorry.
I guess we can talk about the chair. Okay.
Well, I think it's good because it fits into the same sense of control and ownership that both adults and children really need. I think the thing that I would underline here before we tell the anecdote about the chair is kind of the theme throughout every one of these lives. And I think basically every one of the podcasts and all the material. And that is children are not little adults, but they're also not little adults. And many of the things that we experience as adults, children experience too, and vice versa. The example being like, I'm going to throw out this old bag of rice and I'm going to get in the bathtub. They're both coming from the same place. And one of the reasons education is so important is that we're helping give kids the ability to handle those things over time as they continue to mature. And we had a really fun example of that happen with our youngest again this week. You want to tell that story?
Oh, well, it's really, you're the one who was helping with it, but I guess David and I were busy. It starts with David and I were really busy. We were chatting with each other and we were involved in finance, or like hashing through our finances and some
tax season or
bigger decision making type of stuff. And so we were unavailable for most of the day because we were like really trying to work through this kind of stuff together. And we were publicly, like, we were just sitting on the couch doing it. And the kids knew that we were really not available. And so my youngest, he knew how much money he had saved from the money that he got from Christmas. And he decided his chair broke. Like his chair literally fell apart.
It was a computer chair.
It's a really, really old chair. So I'm not surprised it fell apart. I probably could have hacked it back together again. But he decided, this chair is done. I need a new chair. So he called instead. So he came out and he was like, I need a new chair. And we're both like, okay, we're like busy. And so he goes back in his room and he calls my dad and my brother. My dad was staying with my brother. At the time, my parents were at my brother's house. And he calls them and he's like, hey guys, I am in the market for a new chair.
Right.
And you guys like gaming, and my brother and my dad really do like gaming. And so he's like, do you know of any good gaming chairs I could buy? And so that turned into them going on this big hunt online to find the perfect gaming chair. Yep. And so finally, like after an hour or more, he's on the phone, and we're kind of aware he's on the phone with them. He finds the perfect chair and he comes out and he shows it to us. And he's like, this is the chair I want. And we're like, okay,
whatever, sounds good. Yeah. Like, we'll look later.
Right, we're kind of busy. Yeah, exactly. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna buy it, and is that okay? And we're like, probably fine, yes, I guess, and so then he goes back to his room, wraps up the end of his call, and then later we come to him, we finish up and we come to him and we're like, tell us about this chair thing. So we have this conversation with him, and he's just like, I know I have this money, and Papa agreed to pay for the shipping, because, and blah, blah, blah. And so he bought, so long story short, we buy this chair. And it doesn't take very long to come. It takes a few days, but then it arrives at our house. And this kid was the happiest I
Oh,
have
he was
seen
on
him in a
cloud
long
nine
time.
the
He was
whole
just like,
time.
my chair. He was so
He was looking
excited.
up, when is it going to come? He would ask, Dad, when does it say it's arriving? Oh, it's coming next
Following the
week.
delivery truck.
And then it came early, and he was like, I knew it would come early. You were wrong. Ha ha ha. And he couldn't help. He couldn't wait to put it together. His older brother came out. We all did it together. He was just really over the moon. I'd never seen. It's rare to see somebody to see him get so excited about a thing. It's not generally his kind of personality. And that's partly because we have a philosophy of, if we need something as a family and we can afford that, then we'll have that. We'll get that. Buying a chair is something he needs for his computer. It's for his, schooling and everything else. So of course we're going to buy you a chair, but it meant so much more because he went out, he did the research, he talked to his grandfather and his uncle, he watched videos about it, he picked out exactly the color, he decided to get this color instead of the other because it was a little bit cheaper, and that was fine anyway. And then he got it, and he is over the moon because he's emotionally invested in it. It became intrinsically motivating to him to get this thing. It became a symbol of pride to have that kind of ownership, and that's perfect for his age. He's in the end of the second plane, and so it's right on target. But I challenge you, adults who are watching, to go back. I'm sure you'll find something in your mind where you felt so satisfied when you either finished something you made by hand, or you went out and you purchased something that you've been thinking about for a long time, or you took a trip. We still have those kind of even as adults, we're having those moments. And so what we're doing with what we're doing with him, and what we're allowing him to do, is have the freedom to explore that and to feel that joy in a healthy way, and kind of helping them understand why it was joyful. And it's not about the material thing per se, it's about the process, so that he can learn that lesson and go on to have a joyful life rooted in those kinds of experiences. So even in these little small ways, it's very, very powerful. And it kind of comes down to freedom.
Yeah. So, what I thought was just super dear that I took a lot of pictures of is the putting together of the chair, because both of our boys started together. The oldest also came and started helping. They started laying out all the pieces on the rug, and then David came over to help, and I quietly excused myself to go
Yep.
work on something else. Yeah. But they seem to really enjoy the whole process. Yeah.
Yeah.
So practical life for older kids. That's what it looked like at our
Absolutely
house
right.
this week.
That's exactly right.
Can we do Encanto now?
If we must.
Who has seen Encanto? Comments in the chat and let us know. Have you seen this one, or is it something that you have not yet seen? So if you've seen it, there's no pressure to like it.
No,
I've talked to people who have said, I kind of feel bad. Everybody else seems to like it, but I don't really like it. And that is okay.
It is.
David and I are kind of, we watch a lot of Disney stuff.
Yeah, I'm a lifelong Disney head. I grew up, I'm an 80s kid. So grew up watching all that stuff on VHS. I was a teen when the revival of Disney revival happened with Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. At some point in my life, in the 20s, when I was in my 20s, I got too cool for school and turned my nose up at it and was like, oh, Pixar is the where it's at now. And then, I got older and wiser. And kind of came around, and part of it was having kids.
Disney also got better.
Disney did.
They got
that's
more
right.
inclusive. They, I don't know. They just got they just edged themselves better. I still take issue with a lot of the feminist.
Absolutely right.
Problems and the racist problems that are in the earlier Disney films. And I think it's not like it's 100%. It's like not perfect because all animated film is basically a reflection of our current culture and
That's right.
our thought processes. But I feel like it's better these days.
It's certainly different. I think, you're right. And we're not here necessarily to talk about all the sins of Disney or any kind of mass corporation that's trying to produce mass media entertainment. There's always going to be a lot of issues, but this particular movie is really wonderful. It does kind of.
Should I tell him I wrote my thesis?
No.
No.
But this particular movie is wonderful. I think it actually is it kind of winkingly thumbs its nose a bit at some of the older conventions, some of the older princess narratives that had gotten so popular in the early aughts, and sort of we've kind of moved beyond. So I think there's a lot of wonderful things on that. And I think beyond that, it's just an incredibly good score. Lin-Manuel Miranda is one of our greatest musical composers for like popular theater around. I was skeptical at first, and then I became a big fan of Hamilton, as a lot of people did, because of the complexity of the music. He obviously studied at the with the master Stephen Sondheim, and who also wrote some of the most wonderful music of the 20th century. So his gift is very clear. And actually, when I first saw Encanto, I thought, oh, this is very derivative of Hamilton. And then I listened to it again and again. I was like, this is actually really, really great. And that's when I really kind of came around and was like, this is actually a really good movie. And if you haven't seen it, that's fine. And if you don't like it, that's fine. If you don't like musicals, that's fine too. But
they have, just like storybooks that are written for children, all storybooks are really written for adults. I mean, we'll talk about that. If you're in the primary course right now, we'll get to that in language and we'll talk about that. But yeah, stories, they seem to be written for children, but they're actually written for adults to learn lessons from, that they can then teach their children, or just lessons about life that then we can have a conversation about. And so Encanto and every other Disney film that's ever really been produced, they all have these really important core lessons built in, that's about the way we perceive each other in our relationships, or the way we see life in general. And when I watched Encanto, I was just struck again and again and again by how these lessons are really embedded inside not just the general storyline, but also the characters themselves, and the songs themselves. I just found it very, very resonant, and very aligned with a lot of Montessori philosophy. And so what we wanted to do here is we wanted to talk, kind of bring out, so when you do watch Encanto, or you watch it again, maybe this time you're watching it and you're noticing the little Montessori lessons to parents that are kind of throughout it. And, I don't know if any of the people who created Encanto are aware about Montessori, but I'll share with you what I see, when I watched it.
That's right.
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about the characters.
Okay.
So I want to talk about the family Madrigal.
Yes.
And this is a family full of magical people. Everyone in the family can do something kind of special. Like they have a special gift, except for our main character, Mirabelle. And she's got a lot of feels about that she shares throughout the whole thing. And what I love about her is that she keeps reaffirming, like, I don't care that I don't have a gift. Like, I am special and lovable and loved in my own way. And she keeps telling other people that over and over and over. And she keeps hearing it herself. Like, as she's telling it, she's hearing it. But you can tell that, it's also kind of a source of pain, the jealousy of the older sisters, just the feeling like, do I or do I not fit in, with my family? And that's actually a common theme in Disney films anyway, that coming of age story,
And this is a great example where the music really helps exemplify it. This is why it's such a a really strong work. The first major song is the Family Madrigal, and introducing the characters, which Mirabel sings. And of course, it's sort of, if you've seen it, you know that it's comedic. Like they say, well, what's your gift? And she's like, oh, I'm not here to talk about myself. And she defers. And then a little bit later, the second song is Waiting on a Miracle, where she sings about herself. It's I think it's called the I Want or the I Wish song in musical theater, like where the character is stating their what they want, and it's sort of the key for her. And what's so great about that song is that it starts in the same. It's the same chord progression at the beginning, but in a more muted tone. I think in a lower key or in a minor key, perhaps. And then she breaks into her own song. And so he's able to, Miranda is using this music to sort of tie this kind of, I'm going to tell myself I'm happy, to this moment of like, I'm not really happy to, then she breaks. And that was I had a great lesson actually with our kids, where we were listening to the musical, the soundtrack in the car. And I said, oh, did you hear how he did that? And then talking about how music can convey emotion and the metaphor of it, which is a fantastic lesson all on its own. And it just really exemplifies this kind of theme of, I could keep telling myself I'm good enough, I'm special, but I'm waiting for it. Like, when is it my turn? That little voice inside our head.
Yeah. Yeah. So we go through the characters. So, she actually introduces all of the family members, the main characters of the whole movie right there in that song, the Family Madrigal, when she's just introducing it to some of the kids who are in the village. She talks about all of their gifts. And so when David and I watched it the first time, we were like, oh, that's really cool. And we watched it the second time, we were like, these characters have more to them. Like the intention of them really seems to be deeper than I think we were realizing before. And the more we talked about it, the more we realized that these characters are actually a great metaphor for children themselves.
That's
like
right.
for actual children. So I want to start with that. So she says it starts with Abuela, who is the matriarch of the family. And what is Abuela's character? She is supposed to be in control of everything. She's supposed to, she's always she's secretly worrying, but she's strong on the outside. And to me, I really love the character of Abuela because she is very, very vulnerable inside. Just like we are as parents, we don't ever know if we're doing the right thing. We're constantly fixating on the past as well. I don't know if you have a baby, I don't know if you're feeling this yet, but by the time you get to be having a toddler, you're kind of reminiscing about those baby days. And then by the time your kid is a preschooler, you're like, oh, remember when they were a toddler? I missed that so much. And you pick up a baby toy and you're like crying.
Exactly.
And then as just the older they get, the more that nostalgia just grows and gets bigger, and it's still happening to us.
That's right.
Every once in a while, I just have to have a great big cry. I'm like cleaning. Usually happens when I'm cleaning, and then I cry because just all these toys, and it brings up all these memories.
Absolutely.
And so I love that about Abuela, that she really is leaning into the nostalgia that she feels as the being a parent or a grandma, but feeling a lot of nostalgia and love. And at the same time, she's also constantly worrying about the future. What will happen to the family? What if the house breaks? Will we survive? But she doesn't want the rest of the family to worry. And that also feels to me like us as parents. We are constantly worrying about our children's future. What would happen? What would happen if you broke your arm? What would happen if you don't get into college? What happens?
Right.
Like we can just keep this going and
That's
going.
right. It's
and
easy
going.
to catastrophize.
Right. But then all of the children that Abuela has, they all have these unique gifts. So let's start with Bruno.
Oh, we don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. Why don't we talk about him? Because he hides away. He feels like he is misunderstood. And he goes and finds he has a secret little room that he makes up for himself, and he hides away from the rest of the family. Who knows a kid who has ever wanted to hide away from the family or wanted to run away from the family? It reminded me, I don't know if you are old enough to have read the book Bread and Jam for Francis. Anyone read the book jam, bread and jam for Francis.
Yeah.
I loved that book when I was little. And in one of those books, might be the bread and jam. There were a lot of Francis books. Francis actually runs away, but she can't run far. Like she knows not to like actually run away around the house. She creates this little fort, and she's, just really hams it up. I'm so sad. Nobody gets me. I have to go and run away now. She packs herself a little, I don't know, a little packet of food, and she goes in and sets up her little home underneath the kitchen table and runs away. And so to me, just thinking Bruno is like that childlike character when your child just doesn't want to be around you, or they won't communicate with you, or when they run to their room, or when something scares them and they hide in the corner.
Yep.
That is Bruno.
It makes me think, I just, as you were talking about Francis, I was thinking, oh, this is like in Beetlejuice.
What?
Yeah. I don't know. Another ancient reference. We're probably all so old now, but in Beetlejuice, the Winona Ryder character, she's writing her diary. I am alone.
Oh, yes.
She just rips it out. I am utterly alone. And it's hilarious because it's kind of that emoting. And then she's a teenager, portraying a teenager. But you see that from littles all the way up to not as littles. As they kind of, that feeling of being misunderstood, saying something that gets misunderstood. I remember myself when I was in college, actually, I was having big feels, I guess, as they would say now, about something. I had read some Melville. I'd read Billy Budd. And I think the line was, I am what I am and what the world made me. And I remember saying that to my mother, trying to explain how I felt. And she looked at me and she said, what are you talking about? I am alone. She was, I can imagine all the horrible things I've said to my children that were unintended, but you feel that way, and it's easy to be misunderstood, right? You feel so outside. We all feel like a Bruno sometimes, and we don't want to be talked about, or we don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable.
So the Montessori lesson in that for me is that, children are going to behave in all kinds of funny ways, but something that we can do as Montessori parents is acknowledge these feels and
That's
not
exactly
dismiss them. So that was the lesson.
That's exactly right. And that is ultimately the lesson in the film, right? So, feeling misunderstood and letting somebody have that space to do it is really important.
Okay. And then
Tia Peppa,
she handles the weather.
She does.
Her moods. She doesn't really handle the weather. She, it's kind of, at first it's like, oh yeah, she can control the weather, but it becomes apparent throughout the film that she does not control the weather.
That's right.
Like her mood is just visible through the weather, so it's her mood and her emotions are connected to the weather, and her emotions are often out of control, like way out of control.
That's right.
So she will be walking around with a big cloud over her head, and it might be raining, or it might be snowing, or there might be lightning. And then sometimes it's just sunny and bright. So, she's an interesting character. She's not just calm and peaceful.
No.
She is wound up. She's the one who sings the We Don't Talk About Bruno song, is so passionate about it. She's very, very high strung.
That's right. And it's a wonderful metaphor. So again, if you're using this with children, for us as the parents to think about our own, the child who wears that emotion on the sleeve, or we have songs like Stormy Monday, Pennies from Heaven. We have expressions in English like he has a sunny disposition, or he's under a black cloud, or whatever. Like there's feeling foggy, right? We use weather a lot as a metaphor for our feelings, and she's literally affecting those. But I find that when we actually see a child in the middle of a tantrum, it can be like we're looking at a storm. Mm-hmm. It could feel like I'm trying to hold a tornado. Or if you're seeing a child who's very, very, very happy, it can feel like sunshine and rainbow. Mm-hmm. The child is literally it seems as though they're literally manifesting these feelings that we can in a physical way, just like in the movie, Peppa can manifest these things. And just like in the movie, they don't have that control over it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can control. Sometimes they are controlled, right? They can tell, like sometimes she can tell herself, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy, and she can make it go away. Sometimes she tells it and it doesn't work. And sometimes it just overtakes her. And that's exactly how it is in life with children. When we tell children, buck up or smile, or if you choose to be happy, you will be happy. We're actually telling them something that's impossible, right? Because sometimes the weather is the weather.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about Tia Peppa, and in one scene, she comes into the room. She kind of whirls into the room. She's busy. She's a mom, so she's doing mom things. And there's like a big cloud that just like whoosh, is over her head, and then she looks up and she sees it, and she just shoos it out the door. And as adults, we can do that more easily than children. We can kind of say, oh, I'm feeling really terrible. You know what? I'm just going to put aside for now because I've got a task, I've got a job to do. And children really don't have that skill yet. They can learn how to take those emotions and just set them aside, or to deal with them or acknowledge them, like she does when she sees the weather. But they aren't very good at it. So it's really something that we have to model a lot for them, is how to recognize your emotions and how to put them in their proper context.
Exactly. And in fact, we had an activity last year, I think, at Constellation about the weather and mood. And it was, and that's a great activity. You don't have to have Constellation to do this. Helping kids think about rainy weather. What does that feel like emotionally? Or if I were to describe how I'm feeling right now, what metaphors would I use? It's great for language. It's great for emotional growth, and it's great for metaphor. There's a lot of really fun things you can do with that, and it's very true. And the other thing I would underline is that we were trying to enable children to have that better control, but we also have to know that you can't always control. That even as adults, there's just sometimes when we have to cry because we get too sad.
Yeah. All right. So Tio Felix, who is Peppa's husband,
That's
so
right.
he married her. Felix is a great character. He seems very much like upbeat and sunny to me, but also he's constantly interrupting her.
That's right.
And she's trying to talk, and he's just like popping in, popping in, popping in. And that really makes me think of how kids do that. Kids are constantly interrupting us as parents. So what should we do when children interrupt us? There are a lot of things we can do.
Right.
We can teach them how to interrupt us more appropriately. So a lot of people will say, you can just like hold my elbow or my shoulder, or put your hand here or something, and then I will know that you need me and I will turn to you. So you can teach your child to give some kind of other signal when they want your attention. Of course, at school, we have them raise their hands. We don't usually do that at home. Our kids, this is funny, our kids attended some class or something, though. They've always been homeschooled, so they don't really know school conventional stuff. But
rules.
one time they went to a library event, and this is a very structured teacher, and they learned that you're supposed to raise your hand to speak. And so they started doing this at the dinner table. So we're like, oh, okay, well, all right. Yep. You can raise your hand if you like. That's kind of nice, I guess. We've generally tried to teach our children how to wait for a pause in conversation and to get eye contact, but that's often really hard for very little children. So kind of a physical, sometimes in the classroom, I would do like tap me twice, like 2 taps, and then wait. And then when I look at you, then I'll be ready for you, to hear you.
Yeah. And I think it makes me think about, the idea of etiquette or being polite, which we really do want to teach children, grace and courtesy. But I think it's important for us to remember that there's social etiquette for the purpose of making the social contract better, not interrupting someone when they're speaking. And then there's social etiquette that's really meant to like enforce class distinction. So like the way that we fold our napkin or the way that we use our fork, it's meant to symbolize that you know the rules and therefore are cultured. And whether you like that or not, that's your choice. But as a parent, the important thing is to teach them the ones that actually will help them navigate through life. So don't raise your hand at the dinner table, but do wait to speak until the conversation has opened up. Don't run in and tell me you want me to look at your chair right away. You have to wait. And if we're busy, you need to, I know you're excited, but you need to come back later, or send it to us in another way and we'll look at it together. And learning that kind of wait time is about etiquette. That's the social grace that we really want to impart.
And then we have Julieta, who is Mirabella's mom, and she can make you feel better with just one arepa, which is awesome. She can heal you with your food. And this is, I love this one because they're kind of making literal this idea that a mom might like make food or cook for you and it might make you feel better. We've got the whole idea that you just need a little chicken soup when you're sick and that will heal you. Of course, nutrition.
Home cooking,
Nutrition is real. Yeah, we call it comfort food. But she literally can make something and then magically heal somebody. But that is also, kind of true. Like eating good food that you make yourself or that someone makes for you feels really good. And this makes me think, coming back to practical life again, about cooking in the kitchen and what a healing opportunity that is.
That's right.
Earlier in the practical life conversation that I was having today with my primary members, somebody did mention like cooking as being one of those refreshing things that just makes you feel better. Like seeing the process of cooking and then the result of cooking, it can have that internal comfort. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Healing. So what we can do in Montessori is we can teach our children how to cook,
Exactly.
and every child can learn how to cook. We learned that from the movie Ratatouille.
Other life lessons from animated films.
Yeah. So anyone can cook and should cook because it just makes you feel good. And it's a way that you can serve other people. And so in Montessori, we have lots of practical life activities that revolve around using cooking utensils. And also the grace and courtesy lessons that David mentioned are also about serving other people,
plating food.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was lovely. And then we have Augustine,
the accident-prone father.
Yes, the accident-prone father. And this made me think about messes and about how children are very accident prone. They don't have the coordination yet to avoid. I mean, all of us can have accidents at any time, but it seems like children have a lot more of them.
And they do because they don't have as much motor control. Their bodies are growing rapidly.
Drop things and just make big messes on the floor and don't really know how to organize it back together.
They're likely to do things that are going to get them in trouble, like climb into a bush that has bees. An adult's probably not going to do that. But
one of ours did that.
Exactly.
I'd forgotten that one.
No. So it swells up, and you're like, "Oh my gosh!" No magic food to heal, but a very realistic thing, like that being accident prone or stumbling into mishap.
And I love the line, he's accident prone, but he means well. Like he really does. And children do too. They really mean well.
That's right.
They just make a lot of big messes. They just wanted to go outside to see the garden. They didn't know that when they came back in, their feet would be all muddy and it would get all the carpet that was just been cleaned all muddy again. Like they are innocent in that way, but they're very, very messy. So in Montessori, we place a big emphasis in practical life on teaching them how to clean up their own messes. And that can be very, very empowering. And it doesn't, I know that it seems kind of obvious, but that as a lesson in itself isn't part of like a traditional preschool curriculum.
No,
how to clean up. It's kind of might be expected, and the teacher might go around and do a lot of the cleaning themselves, or just say it's cleanup time, everybody clean up now, without really explaining what that means or what one is really supposed to do, other than grab a toy and then go throw it in a bin, which is what happened when I was teaching daycare back in my 17-year-old summer home from college days. It was clean up time. Everybody grab something and put it in a big box. But no, in Montessori, we actually teach it as a lesson. Here is how to clean up this. Here is how to clean up this. Here are your supplies that are child size so that you can take care of your own messes.
Exactly.
Yep. And then we have Camilo.
The cousin, the trickster cousin. I think he's a funny
Yes.
character. He's the one who shape shifts. He can turn into all different kinds of, I guess, anything really. He's any kind of other human, he won't stop until he makes you smile. We're told, and he is a delightful character. He reminds me a lot of how children love to dress up, and how they love to play different roles, and pretend play, practical jokes. Our kids still, they somehow they found a pair of chattering teeth that somebody gave them for Christmas. I'm sure I did, and has been lost to the
I think it came
ages.
from your mom.
Maybe, I don't know, but it's you wind it up and so you wind it up, and so now they've gotten into a habit of they'll hide it, like they'll put it underneath a pillow, and you go lift it like, or they'll put it in the bathroom underneath like some toothpaste, or so all the time I'm hearing ha 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 ha, you got me. They're
I know.
they love jokes.
They got me with the chattering teeth during dinner just a couple days ago. I sat on them and then sat up, and they laughed and laughed.
Yeah.
They got you on it was under your pillow or something
gosh.
one night. Anyway, children are tricksters, but they also like to play pretend.
They do.
And pretend to be other people or to pretend to be animals. And so Camilo, he just like transforms constantly into other people and is just like super happy. And so children also just like to pretend play. Now, I know this is a controversial thing in Montessori. This whole should we be teaching pretend play lessons? It wasn't really something that Maria Montessori was all about. But there is so much evidence that we have these days that pretend play is super healthy and crucial for children's development. And so I just think it's a great thing to make an example of. So I think as an adult, you can join them in their pretend play. You can lead them in their pretend play. And again, there are some Montessori circles that say never pretend to be anything, or I don't know. It's silly to me because we enjoyed this so much. We love theater and being dramatic with our kids. And so, yeah, let them pretend play and dress up.
And I just saw the comment here. I think Valerie, you were writing this. That I love that too. In fact, that's a common theme to the whole film. There's not judgment or ridicule, and that's like there's nothing about Camilo. There's never any point where they're like, Camilo, you're bad. You're causing mischief. You're making a mess. It's always taken in the right way. I think it's important, as a parent with teenage kids and with boys. Not everybody is okay. They tolerate little kids being rambunctious or mischievous, and then they get really, really tired of it when they are actually pretty little. And the fact is that even teenagers like to pretend play. They want to cause mischief. They want to be rambunctious. They're just bigger children. And when we kind of penalize them for that, it's not very healthy at all. So I love that. I love that depiction as well. I love that he's this boisterous teenage kid who can be a boisterous teenage kid.
And we can use this natural proclivity towards pretend play in our Montessori way. I had lots of puppets around our household, and I would just get them out, and the puppets would be talking to the children, and sometimes those puppets would be giving Montessori lessons. I mean, it is what we did, and it was fun, and it was engaging to our kids. So yeah, it's totally allowed as long as you are being genuine, as long as everybody knows, you're illuminating the difference between reality and pretend, of course. I also think the Montessori method itself has a lot of kind of fantastical pretend mystery in it. You can hide things and then reveal them. And that's actually a great Montessori teaching technique that you can use with your kids.
Absolutely right.
Dolores.
Yeah, Dolores. It's the super hearing. She can hear the chorus a mile away. It's hilarious. That's a funny line. Super hearing. I thought what I love about this is kind of a depiction of childhood is the child is always listening. Little ears have a big range. The walls are listening. Whatever, we have all these ways to describe it, and I've certainly experienced that. I mean, all parents do, and sometimes in ways that aren't the way that often in ways that you aren't really wanting. So a classic example is using 4-letter words, as swearing, which I had a bad habit of doing when I was in my 20s. And then we had a little one. And at first it didn't matter. And then it started to come back to me. And I thought, well, that was real bad. And so I curbed it. And actually, I'd kind of forgotten about it because it's been so long now. But then our youngest was saying he's gotten into practicing his own 4-letter word. He's in that stage. And we were like, we're trying to teach him in terms of grace and courtesy. Like, let's speak with, clarity instead of vulgarity. And
at least when we're at grandma's house.
At least when we're at grandma's house. Like, we don't want to punish it because that can reinforce, but we do want to guide. So, and he was asking the question, like, well, did my older brother ever do this? And we're like, no, he actually really didn't. And I think it's like, I think that lesson of the Ears Have Walls had something in there, not in all ways, but definitely for that one.
Yeah. In tweens and teens, they will talk differently to each other than they do. They're still learning the difference between how to talk in a certain social situation and how to talk in another social situation. So our youngest is on Discord a lot with his tween and teen friends, and they swear constantly. And the other day I asked him, I asked him to do something for me that he didn't want to do, and he called me a bad swear word like under his breath. And then I came out and I was like, and he looks at me and he goes, oh, I'm so sorry, my brain was in Discord. I know I shouldn't have done that.
Yes.
I didn't switch over.
Which then leads to the lesson of, a well-worn path is easy to walk.
Yeah.
So if you use that language a lot, it's going to come out in places. And so this is a life lesson, right? You're learning the rules of courtesy and grace at the moment that you're in.
Yes. But enough about teenagers. Let's talk about secrets real fast. Secrets are, look at this. Look at this. This is The Secret of Childhood, right? By Maria Montessori. She loved secrets. And she thought all of childhood was like one big, amazing secret, all of those things that happen inside. So in Montessori, we can use secrets to our advantage with children. We can whisper rather than yell at them. You can whisper by whispering. Sometimes you get their attention more clearly. They just hear them more clearly than they can hear shouts. And we can also create little secrets and mysteries within our works.
Mm-hmm.
And that just really, really appeals to them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it also makes me think of the sense of hearing in the sensorial area, where we're trying to isolate the sense of hearing, and then not really, everything else is just kind of put down. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so really you're just focusing on that. Yeah. Mariano is not yet part of the family officially yet, but he is definitely an important character. And he's kind of a side character, but I felt like he was really well developed. He's memed a lot for his walk. He's got this really, really cute, cool walk. And, really all we really know about him for most of the film is that he's in love with Isabella.
That's right.
Yeah, and he just loves her. He just is representing love for her.
That's right. Romantic love.
And
there's lots of kinds of love expressed in this familial, paternal.
And Abuela approves of him.
Exactly.
Yeah, and he's very handsome. And that's really all we know about him until towards the end of the film. And then we learn some other details about him that are also important. But he says towards the end of the movie, they say, "Hello, hey Mariano, why so blue?" And he says, "I just have so much love inside." It's just like this moment, and it's kind of comedic, but also you really feel it for him. Like he's been rejected by his love, and he's not really sure what to do or where to go. And this makes me think about how children have so much love. And again, that's a theme in Montessori, is like she saw guide, being a Montessori guide is being the embodiment of love, and that really being the whole thing. Like the whole thing is about love.
That's right.
And that's where you get really deep into the Montessori philosophy. And I know it doesn't make sense when you're first starting out. It's all about the lessons and the cute works on the shelf and the practical life. But when you really start reading a book like The Absorbent Mind, the theme of love is the biggest part of it. And children have so much love to give. There's really almost nothing you can do to your kids that will make them not love you. Like they're, and that's, I don't know, it's just been demonstrated over and over in human society. Like children are just born with this immense capacity of love. And I think we often feel guilty when we yell or do something to our children that we feel guilt about. And then they come back and they just respond with like, I love you, mommy. That just makes us feel awful. But like they just have this enormous capacity for it.
That's right.
I love that. Isabella, the golden child.
She grows a flower and the town goes wild.
I know. She's perfect in every way. She's not really perfect and doesn't want to be perfect. But actually, the thought of the magical gift of growing flowers made me think about how much children love gardening and being outside. Some people expect their children to have this big, long 3-hour work cycle inside the classroom, and you can. But you can also have that outside. And maybe your children would rather be outside. Children love, like they have this love for being outside and nature and exploring all that the world has to offer. I think that the outdoors is already the perfect prepared environment for children. It's so, so good for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's no greater toy than a stick or a rock or something, an old log to climb on, a bog to float something in, including yourself. The world, the natural world, gives so much to us, and children really get that. In fact, if you look at a playground, a lot of it is like meant to replicate the outdoors in a different way. So what's better than that? Going out, planting a flower, going out, smelling them, teaching the kind of care that it takes in the life cycle of the plants and watching them grow and looking at animals. There's all sorts of wonderful things that you can do that are outside of your home. And as a homeschooling family, you have more of that opportunity.
You do. As homeschoolers, we can use our entire world, wherever we want to go, and that's in our local environment. And so if you want to spend all day at the park, spend all day at the park. It's good for the kids.
That's right.
They naturally are going to be doing Montessori activities outside just by their very nature. And you'll find a lot of lessons to give them out there too.
Yeah. I mean, I think with Isabella, she doesn't dislike growing the flowers, as the plants. I mean, that's not her transformation. She wants to grow the things that she cares about. She wants something true, as she says in the song, and that's just right on the money for kids too.
So Louisa is super strong, and I love her character so much. There's so much to talk. We could do a whole thing on surface pressure. We were kind of running out of time this morning. But what strength makes me think about is not just that children are resilient themselves, but that they actually have this natural inclination towards something that we call maximum effort. And you can see it really clearly in little toddlers. You see it in older ones too, but it's kind of harder to see with our very little ones. You can see it really clearly. They will actually go and try and pick up the biggest thing that they can possibly pick up in their arms and try to lug it across the room. And you're like, why? Why are they doing that? That thing didn't really need to be moved, did it? No, it's because they want to use their incredible strength. So they'll try to pick up things that are just twice as big as they are, or twice as heavy as they are, and try to lift them. Our children still do it sometimes when we go on hikes. I know they're like tweens and teens. But they will still go and try and lift the heaviest logs. That David and I would look at these giant branches and logs and be like, that would hurt my back.
Yeah. They want to do it.
I don't want to pick that thing up.
They want to push themselves.
Yeah, so they really like to go and find these giant branches while we're hiking and then just drag them along. And sometimes they want to do that in front of us, and we're like, no, let us go first
Yeah,
so
that's
that
right.
you guys can
Make that
drag
dust behind
the
us,
big
please.
stick, right? Drag the sticks back there. But they don't want to just pick up one little stick and carry it along. They want to lift the heavy things or drag the heavy things. And so that just really reminded me of that aspect of
Yeah,
children.
they don't know what they have they're capable of. But they want to
No.
try.
Yeah, and Louisa gets to carry all kinds of funny stuff.
She does.
So she lifts up
Her donkeys in
churches
the
and
church, and
she's always carrying donkeys around. I think that would be really appealing to children, the idea, but also very much like them. And sometimes the children are accident prone, as we just talked about. Just the other day, our youngest was coming down the stairs and he had loaded himself up with everything that he could possibly bring with him downstairs, including a giant bowl of yogurt. And that yogurt,
wound up on the floor.
it wound up on the stairs. And it was like, well, I guess he just learned a lesson. But really, I don't know that he learned that particular lesson at that moment. It just was indicative to me of we all carry too much stuff sometimes, but you just don't really know how much is too much until you try.
That's right.
Yeah. So I love her character.
And the last one we were going to talk about is Antonio,
Yeah.
who can talk to animals. I don't know a child who doesn't talk to animals in some way. There's a lot of adults who talk to the animals too.
I know kids
Cats
who
and
are
dogs
scared of.
That's right.
Can be scared of animals,
But stuffies.
Right, little stuffed animals, or just think about all of the talking animals that are in stories, all the folk tales that have been told over and over and over that use animal characters in order to tell the stories. And so I don't know, I really liked his character. What child doesn't want to ride a jaguar around his own jungle? Like, that was an amazing scene. I think
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still entertainment. And so trying to capture the child's imagination or the viewer's imagination, even as an adult, you're like, oh, that'd be quite a ride.
Yes, but children are also doing that in their minds.
They
when they have their little stuffed jaguars or leopards or whatever it was.
We had a giant
riding around. That's what's really happening in their imagination.
We had a giant stuffed alligator. It's still around here somewhere. They called him Nuff. And they would ride Nuff. They'd ride him downstairs. They would ride him just on their bed. It was very much, I think, in their minds, they were just like Antonio, riding a real thing all around. And so it was nice. It was really fun to see it brought to life. Something that's very relatable.
Yeah. I would. The kids would always comment. I would sometimes say, okay, that's enough. If they got too rambunctious or something, and they would say, no, Mom, Nuff is downstairs, or no, Mom, Nuff is in the closet.
It was funny the first 1,000 times.
I know, it's like the chattering teeth, right? Exactly. Over and over and over. Anyway, Nuff has been with us for
ever. Yeah.
Enough.
Long enough to not remember.
Yeah.
So those characters are great. And we talked about the expression. I think we were going to kind of conclude with talking a little bit about a couple of the songs. I know we're kind of running at the end of time, though. The last thing I would say on those characters is that not only are these wonderful, they exemplify so wonderfully these characteristics of children, but I think as adults we also can really identify that. I saw Valerie was saying you identify with Luisa as a mom. I certainly identify with that character too, the sense of like carrying the burden as the oldest child. I'm the oldest male in my family now, and so I felt that weight fall on me at times. Just hearing things you don't necessarily want to know, we can so much about it. And I think the abuela character is really powerful because she, we think about it, she really is all of these things. She is the one who has to be super strong. She's the one who hears everything. She's the one who has to be perfect. She's all of these things together in a way that is just too much, right? And that's kind of part of the lesson of the movie. So we can feel that so much. It's so relatable.
Yeah. And in the end, Maribel knits back her family's issues and
In a new way.
yeah.
She is the
And
new
there's a lot of
generational
conflict
change.
resolution
That's right.
modeling in there too.
And somebody said, yeah, that's right, dealing with the grief and so forth. And somebody had
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that one of the things about the movie they like is that it's not about a bad guy. That's exactly right. There's no villain
No.
in the film per se. I mean, there are villainous acts, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end, but there's not an actual villain that they're fighting against. It's really about growth and change and coming to terms with it, like that song "Dos Orejitos," the idea of the butterfly, together and then and moving apart, and it's so symbolic of the kind of the story of the movie.
Yeah, that always reminds me of the Porthesia butterfly of the sensitive periods.
Yeah,
So if you don't know that story, that also is posted on our YouTube channel.
that's right.
Yeah,
Well, I know we're at time. Did you want
we're
to
at
mention
time.
anything else?
Okay, so I think we each get a song.
Yeah, we each get one song and then a
we've got
final
1
thought.
minute.
Okay.
All right.
What is your one song?
Okay.
I'll go first. Okay. For me, the song that I wanted to talk about is "What Else Can I Do?" The Isabella's song. It's such a beautiful song. I love that this idea of how important it is to let the child bloom. I think one other thing I like about it so much is we often put incredible expectations on a child, and we can get compliance. This is true in school as it is in home, but compliance isn't what we want. What we want is for them to blossom and become their own thing and confident and successful adults. She says it so well. She says she's sick of pretty. She wants something true. She wants to be authentic. And the thing that she makes when she's true to herself is more beautiful than the thing that she's expected to make when she's trying to live by these other rules. We, as parents, that's one of the reasons we choose to homeschool, is that we want to make sure that our children aren't being forced into compliance without understanding why. We want them to be able to actually develop reasoning and empathy for the world and themselves, and a true love of themselves so that they can go out and be successful humans. So I love that character. When I first saw the film, I know this is more than a minute, I'm sorry, but when I first saw the film, I was like, that song. And then I listened to it more and I was like, he did a great job, right? He really transforms that character so wonderfully from the start of the song to the end, and the relationship of Isabella to Mirabelle. It's such a wonderful song, especially because Isabella is the one doing all the change. Mirabelle goes in there to hug it out, right? She's like, let's hug this out. I got to solve this problem. And that's not what happens. Something much more important happens. And Mirabelle, as we've kind of talked about before, doesn't reject it. She leans in and says, this is the way it's going to be. This is wonderful. So it's a really positive message. And I just love that song.
I love that song too. All right. So my song is Surface Pressure. Yeah. It really speaks to me. Louisa talks about just having so much on her shoulders and how it comes with this feeling of worthlessness unless she can please everybody all the time. And I am a people pleaser, too much of one. And it's hard to work against that. I know a lot of you are too.
Mm-hmm.
We want to, especially when we become parents, our children demand so much of us. And the line that really resonated with me was, she says, under the surface, I feel berserk as a tightrope walker in a 3-ring circus.
Yeah.
And that made me think about what a circus it is when you have children.
Yeah.
Young children like tossing this stuff in the air and making messes, and constantly needing food and the juggling. And if you have more than one child, like you're multitasking, you're changing the baby, or you got the baby on the hip and you're doing this thing with your toddler, or maybe the older kid is over here and you're supposed to be teaching math or something. Like there's just so much that we are responsible for, especially those of us who are stay-at-home parents. And just, there are just times when you look around, it's just like toys are everywhere, and our children were jumping on the couch and we're chasing after the muddy feet. And all we can really do is laugh, right? Because it actually is like a circus at home. And our lives with children are just kind of crazy. And at the same time, our expectations of ourselves are so high. They're like too high. And so what is the solution to this? She tells us, like in the song, she says, but wait, if I could shake the crushing weight of expectations, would that free up some room for joy? or relaxation or simple pleasure? And the answer is yes. Yes, it can. And yes, this is what Montessori can do for you. If you are just discovering Montessori,
That's right.
this is one of the biggest benefits of it, is learning how to observe our children. Observing even the mess and the chaos that is around us can help us to feel more grounded and mindful. It can help us to focus more on the joy that our children are, showing us how to be more joyful. It can allow us to participate more in the joy with them rather than thinking of it as work to do. And it can help us to just be with our children in that moment, which is ultimately the best thing for them and for us.
That's right.
So,
Focusing in on the moment.
yeah. So, anyway, I love that one. I could listen to it all the time. And I would love to talk about more of the songs, but we got to go.
We have to go. It's such a good movie, though. I mean, again, if it's not your cup of tea, that's a-okay. There's lots of great metaphors, great entertainment out there for kids and adults. So find something that speaks to you, have that experience with the family, and enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for being here with us. We'll see you next time.
Take care.